welcome to the Mango Publishing Heart Wisdom panel. It's so great to see all of you today. I'm Sherry Richert Belul, author of Say It Now, 33 Creative Ways to Say I Love You to the most important people in your life. And oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about today. We have Dr. Julissa and Elise, who are both here to talk about healthy living and longevity and super aging and holistic health. And we have so much great stuff to talk about. And I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves. Why don't we start with you, Elise, and tell us, why do you do what you do?
Well, I am a gerontologist and I'm also a yoga teacher. And I do what I do for several reasons. One, the aging part, I've always loved older adults. I found them fascinating. When I was an undergrad in college, I studied history. And I think the best way to learn is from real people, not from books. And even when you're studying history, you study, the real person accounts. I'm not thinking of the name, but it's first person accounts. And I think when there's a person behind the history, we learn so much more, and the history books leave out a lot. So I love older adults, and not that they're just a history, because they are incredible humans. And I think Dr. Julissa and I both share a love of centenarians. I think centenarians, I've been studying global centenarians around the planet for several years now, and I just received a gerontology degree in 2020, and I just graduated and walked across the stage at USC about a week ago because there was no in-person graduation a year ago. And my mentor, Dr. Murali Nair, he has gone around the world studying centenarians. And so I just gravitate towards the social environments that allow us to live longer, and also the internal mindset. And I love the diet and everything, but I feel like my niche is more, how can we create these supportive environments like they have in the blue zones, and how can we almost attract it? Because when we have that inside of us, which we learn in yoga to bring in more prana, have that prana inside of us, and then I think then we attract more of the environment outside of us. So that's my mission in my book that I wrote, is how to, it's called Super Ager.
And tell us, because now just in case, I loved your book, in case there's anybody who hasn't read it, what does the term super ager mean?
It was originally intended to talk about older adults. There's not an exact age, but there's an 85-year-old that has the brain of a 60-year-old. And it's broadened because with the internet, people say super ager. So there's not a specific Webster dictionary definition, but to me, I like the idea of super because there's an exponential rise, and centenarians are the largest growing group any age in the population. They're growing by tenfold.
Wow.
And just our life expectancy around the world is growing so quickly that it's an exponential growth. And as we age, our personalities and who we are, we become more diverse. It's the heterogeneity is think about it, how we're all different ages, but we keep changing. And the longer you live, the more you become more of yourself and become more unique. So I think that is pushing us in a super direction. And the more we optimize it, I think we're all super aging.
Wow. Oh, Elise, it's so great. And thank you, Victoria. I see Victoria put the link to your book in the chat. So if anybody doesn't have it, it's right there for you to get. Thank you for that. And Dr. Julissa, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, and also you told us before we went live how long you would love to live. Will you share that with everybody?
Absolutely. Everyone come and join me. I'm going to 125. That is my goal. I've even posted that on social media before as I've interviewed. I love everything that Elise said, and have also interviewed centenarians in Costa Rica and so on, and just absolutely love everything that has to do with radical life extension and anti-aging and beauty and maintaining all of that. So yes, but an introduction to myself. Thank you so much, Sherry, for having me, and I'm honored to be here along with Elise. I am Dr. Julissa, and empowering people to experience epic health is what I absolutely love to do, and have been doing so as a board certified naturopathic doctor for May 1st. I celebrated 26 years in practice, and utilized the latest in technology to actually find the root cause of my patient's suffering, whether it be an emotional, physical, mental, or spiritual root cause that is causing them to be suffering, and helping people to experience epic health and epic sexual health as well, because I do talk a lot about sex, as I have a sexual health talk podcast. For any of you that have ever listened to the nationally syndicated radio show, The Michael Baisden Show, I'm Dr. Julissa, that's me. I was on that radio show for 9 years, and I'm a television personality as well, and currently have 2 radio shows on WGLRO.com, To Your Good Health Thursdays, and Sexual Health Talk podcast on SRN Live TV and Radio. So I'm at your service, and I'm a Taoist, but I'm also a yogi. I've been to Rishikesh, Haridwar, Vrindavan, and done. My teacher, just in case Elise you didn't know, is Raghunath Kapo, who is Radhanath Swami's student, and I love everything that has to do with health and maintaining one's well-being. So when we're going on 50, as I'm going on 50, you want to do that. You want to try to live as long as possible.
And what I love, I know this is our first time meeting, but I love, it's not just that you want to live long, but you're so vibrant, both of you, right? And it's one of the things that I've always loved about Elise too, but Dr. Julissa, now I've come to love about you already, where it's the vibrancy, it's the vitality. That it's not just living long, because a lot of people think, oh, I don't want to live long because you just suffer. But I don't see that happening for you too.
No suffering, please.
That's not my plan.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for introducing yourselves. And as further introduction, I know that each of you brought a little something to read from your books, so that we get a chance to hear from your books directly. And Elise, why don't we come back to you and have you start us off?
Oh, okay. I'm actually not quite, okay, I'll read this. This is about a woman. I wasn't prepared, but I'll just turn to something. This is about healing songs. And I'm going to read about a woman named Mati Mutu. She's 110 years old, and she lives in the Spice Mountains of India, just above Kerala. She always smiles. As a member of the Kani tribe, she proudly sings the traditional songs, the healing songs that have subjects such as respecting your environment and taking care of yourself. A few years ago, she was awarded by local officials for her work preserving the musical heritage of her tribe. Besides sharing her musical gifts, she loves to adorn herself. She wears intricate and colorful beaded necklaces, shiny bangle bracelets, and gold earrings. She is proud of her physical appearance, and she feels young at heart. She uses the medicinal power of touch and prayers to deities to heal many ailments of tribe members. Although many officials and family members affirm her age, there is no written record of her birth, as she was not born in a hospital. Unfortunately, many demographers fail to recognize centenarians and super centenarians such as Mati, because the written records were not part of her heritage. So I like to share that story because, and it just popped out at me, I felt it was a divine intervention for 2 reasons. One, well, a couple reasons. She loves to wear all these beautiful necklaces and bracelets. She loves the way she looks. And I think in the West, we're so concerned about how we look, and it's an internal as well as an external thing. And if I think I look great, I look great. and it shows, if you're feeling closed down, it closes down your energy. And what I've learned from centenarians is to open up your energy and just shine and be visible and beautiful. And she sings and heals her tribe. And also the fact that we have a Western model, which is very much about the product and the proof. And I was on another longevity discussion yesterday where somebody was saying, well, I want the science, and I know the science is important, and I'm sure we'll hear about it from Julissa, but the many ancient traditions, they didn't have science, but they worked with things that worked. When I started doing yoga, which was literally about 30 years ago, there wasn't much proof. Even with meditation, we are getting so much science about meditation and yoga and how it does help us live longer. It lengthens our telomeres. It has so many beneficial effects. But when I started, I did it because it felt great. So I want to encourage people to do what they're drawn to, follow your heart, so to speak. And as long as it's not harmful, sometimes it's going to be scientifically proven. Don't do anything that's crazy or harmful. You can consult your doctor, but I think, what's the harm if it helps you to feel good? I'm complete.
Elise, I love that. And I love what you chose to read, because those stories, and I know Dr. Julissa probably also has so many, it's so inspiring, right? To hear about 110 years old and to be so delighted with who she is. I mean, which of us doesn't want that right now, right? Like to feel that. And we do live in a culture, which I'm so glad you pointed out, that here in the United States, where I can't tell you the number of women friends I have, they look in the mirror and they just see, oh, this wrinkle, or, instead of celebrating their vitality. So I'm so grateful for these stories. Dr. Julissa, and feel free if you want to respond to anything that Elise just said before you read, that's also great.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful story you shared there, Elise. And that reminds me of a woman, and I did share this also on all my social media, that I interviewed a centenarian, 103 years old, in Costa Rica. And she had a flower brim hat, and she still had her pearls on, and she still had her bracelets on, and so on, and sat with her legs crossed and was an absolute lady. And it just shows that even those attention to details do not disappear. They glorify themselves as knowing that they can see their worth, right? And so that, I believe, is also an aspect, like what you said, helps them to have that drive, to look forward to the next day, to have a goal, to maybe buy a new dress or buy a new piece of jewelry, and so on. All of that gives them that incentive to keep going. I love that you shared that. Beautiful.
Interrupt you for a second, because behind you too, and we talked about this before, like you're dressed in such beautiful colors and jewels and the beautiful background, and I don't think any of that is shallow. For a lot of times when I talk to people about beauty and clothes and aesthetics, it can deeply change how we see ourselves and how we feel. And so both of you, actually, it's like you have these beautiful, fun backgrounds right now, and it's great.
Thank you. Thank you. I mean, one of those things that I definitely tell my patients, if it's a woman, I want you to put lip gloss on every day. Just that in itself, depression and things of that sort definitely lifts the mood. And the gentleman, I want you to wear cologne every day. Oh, I never wear that. I only wear it when I go out. No, put it on every day. So it's just something, that self kind of care and love, that in itself already brightens up the mood. So yes.
I love it. Yes. Did you want to read us something?
Yes, I'd love to. So for all of you, my book is The Naturopathic Approach to Fertility. And although you see the beautiful bum that Mango chose for my beautiful cover, it is a book for any man or woman who desires to experience epic health, epic sexual health, epic reproductive system health. And how does that also pertain to, because again, I'm fascinated with extending lifespan and such. You'll find that in my book, I talk about specific organs that we should focus on if there are imbalances of the reproductive system. One of those is the kidneys. In ancient medicine, we know that the kidneys are the clock of life. All right. Those are the organs that need to be focused on. And actually wrote an article on longevity where the kidneys are known to be the residents of the loins. But knowing that they're also the clocks of the body, emperors, Chinese emperors in the past dynasties were known to intake a lot of kidney tonics. And I shared all this also in my article to extend their reign so that they could definitely reign for many, many years and lived well past 100 years of age because they took in kidney tonics. And so when I know that a man or woman is having challenges of the reproductive system, I immediately go to focus on the kidneys as well and such. And so that'll just help overall also in extending health, right? So what I wanted to share was also a story in my book. I already have that page open for any of you that have it. It's page 66, and this is the chapter, Hormonal Imbalances Can Interfere and Even Prevent Conception. In this case, because not everyone here wants to have a child, let's talk about how it can actually affect the reproductive system, right? So balanced hormones in men and women are necessary to conceive a child. Research has found that environmental hormone mimics from chemicals, pollutants, like xenoestrogens that we have, we're exposed to just from eating or drinking from a styrofoam cup, found in styrofoam products, are very much linked to infertility in both men and women. That means your hormones in general must be balanced if you are to conceive a child or just feel healthy overall. And let us begin by discussing hormone imbalances in women. What I want to share is the story of Melina. And this is, I changed all the names within my book for privacy, but they all gave their consent for me to share their story and gave those consents to Mango prior to us publishing the book. So her name is Melina. In 2013, Mina, Melina's older sister and a patient of mine for over 7 years, came in for one of her follow-up appointments. During the course of our conversation, Mina confided her little sister's health problem to me. Mina's sister, Melina, was 24 years old. Mina explained that for years, her dear sister was suffering with extremely heavy periods, lack of periods, bloating, weight gain, and excessive facial hair. Plagued by these problems, Melina sought out a gynecologist 4 years earlier. Melina was told she had severe PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, but that wasn't the only distressing news from her doctor. Melina was also told that she was infertile. Imagine it, learning you're infertile at the young age of 20. Mina explained her little sister was heartbroken, as was the rest of their family, with no real solution for her PCOS problem and accepting that she would never be able to get pregnant naturally. Melina had been having unprotected sex. I just want to make a disclaimer. Is everyone here over 18? Okay. She now, I do that before my Sexual Health Talk podcast every time. So she now longed to conceive a child with the man she loved, her partner for the past few years, yet believed that was impossible. Mina was desperate to help Melina find relief from PCOS and fulfill her dream of becoming a mother. I shared with Mina the very same female essential fertility herbal therapy program I shared with all of you within my book. In addition, I prescribed one specific Brazilian herb that has the amazing properties that help with cysts in the body to shrink them and dissolve them. Mina purchased all the recommended herbs for her sister, eager to try a natural remedy. Melina followed my recommendations consistently. Less than 2 months after, Mina received the amazing, joyful news that she would soon be an aunt for the first time. Melina conceived naturally and gave birth to a gorgeous, sassy little girl, and she is sassy. Her princess is now 18 months old. And as of today, and I'll knock on wood, God helps me with that too. I still have a 100% success rate in helping couples conceive. That can change at any time, but as of today, that's been with every single couple that's, followed through their recommendations with me, that all three of us are on the same page. We're going through this together, and yeah. So.
Oh, wow. That was so inspiring as well. And again, not just as you keep saying, it's not just, for anyone who wants to have a child, but to have a healthy reproductive system, to have a healthy sex life, to just have a healthy life. Love that. Was there a reason that you chose that particular passage to share with us?
I just feel that it just helps women or just anyone in general who feels that loss of there's nothing else we can do. I usually get the patients that have been through IVF or tried all types of conventional medicines, since we kind of talked about the difference between naturopathic medicine and allopathic conventional medicine. They've been through many of those things. I would say the fertility patients that come to me, about 95% of them have already been through that. And so once they come to work with a natural approach, it then happens. It just, much of the times, it's not just that there's a physical problem. I've had tons of cases where the gynecologist says there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to get pregnant, or his urologist says your sperm count is fine, your mobility is fine, your motility is fine, the head is shaped normally, the tail is shaped normally. There's no reason why you shouldn't conceive. Sometimes it's an emotional challenge. So if we go quickly back to, for example, the kidneys and how they're the residents of the loins, I have a full chapter where I talk about how emotions affect the body physically, and unresolved forgiveness and fear sometimes are those things that are harboring and kind of blocking the house for baby. And I have to work with them through that to where then baby is there.
Let's stick with this emotions for a few minutes. And Elise, I saw you nodding your head. Did you have something you wanted to add to this?
Well, I have done a little bit of work. I used to teach prenatal yoga, and I did a little work with fertility, teaching yoga. And what I noticed with women that had gone through various treatments, it was very stressful, actually, super stressful to deal with fertility, on top of perhaps having an already stressed body. So I can't wait to buy your book, Julissa, because
you as well.
yeah, because I think it's so helpful. And yeah, just thinking of the sexual energy, the female energy and male energy that we run in our bodies. We don't necessarily have to have babies, but it's so important for our health to be able to let go of maybe something we're holding a grudge or resentment. That's really important. And those are things that I work with in my yoga classes, teaching people just through simple movements. I teach pretty gentle classes because my specialty is more emotional and mental health. And I think that we can access that through more slow movement because we have more time to be with our thoughts. So that's what I focused on as a yoga teacher. As a writer, I have a lot of tips and tricks in my book, and I'm not a doctor, but I try to give things that are really simple, I would say less than a copay for a Western medical doctor, because there is a lot of expensive longevity treatments, but taking those off the table, there's a lot you can do, even just doing a forgiveness meditation.
Yes, agreed. Absolutely. Agreed. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I particularly love this because one of the questions I had for each of you is, what's the one thing that someone could do today that doesn't cost a dime that would truly be beneficial for health? So this seems like a good place to go because Elise, you were just talking about that, and Dr. Julissa too, talking about forgiveness. Would that be one of those?
I would say Oh, go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Dr.
Elise. Go
Lisa.
ahead, Elise.
Okay,
No.
I'll say I have been doing personally myself, I have been drawn in the last week or two to do a lot of forgiveness meditation. And I'm not sure why. So, I think sometimes it just happens and I'm supposed to share it with you guys. And what I've been learning is how forgiveness actually affects your brain waves or true forgiveness, because we can, do a spiritual bypass forgiveness where we say we're forgiving, we're not really, but to really let go, it may not be easy, but we need to be in a meditative state. So if there's something, I might want to start with something a little smaller. You don't want to start with the worst wrong you've ever had, but starting with a tiny, sometimes we call them microaggressions. And sometimes those are hard to forgive. And one of my teachers says, those pile up. So she talks about giving yourself compassion. That's one of the teachings that I've learned from my yoga teacher. And I do that almost in every class. Give yourself compassion, even for the little things, because again, they pile up. And if you are a meditator where you sit, you could think of one small thing that you want to forgive, start with that. And I think you'll feel differently. That's the clue that you've let go of it. You're not, you're not gritting your teeth. You actually release muscular tension. If you don't sit and meditate, what you could do is maybe take a walk, or maybe if you're knitting or something that you do, take care of your plants, your indoor plants, when you're watering them, something that's calming, that may be repetitive. Even something like folding laundry can be meditative, and your body is doing something. It entrains your mind. Driving, I actually did that yesterday. I just went to the ocean and I was so calm when I was driving, because I forget we haven't been driving as much, or I haven't been driving as much. It just kind of takes your mind, because you're doing something that your autonomic nervous system is like driving. I know how to drive. And then you can just kind of drift into unconscious thoughts. You're consciously focused on the road. You're not spacing out, but those are things that help us process. So maybe take a drive. You're not thinking the whole time, but you're just kind of contemplating. So it's a more contemplative meditation.
Ooh, Dr. Julissa, yeah, what would you like to add to that?
I absolutely agree with her. If anyone wants to do something today that doesn't cost a dime, like you said, Sherry, and you want it to have a serious impact on your health and well-being, absolutely learn to forgive. However, the sad part about my bringing sometimes, because when I examine my patients, I'm able to see if I'm seeing challenges of the kidneys. If I see the left kidney, I know it deals with female figures. If it's the right kidney, I know it deals with male figures. Emotional, love, and family relationships, or business, educational matters, career matters, work issues. There's a reason why certain things happen on certain sides of the body. And even in my book on page 51, you'll find the chapter, How Your Thoughts and Emotions Impact Our Health. And I actually walk through what I do with patients so that they can do that forgiveness. And it's a certain task that they have to do so that they can do that. The thing is that if we don't do that, your health is going to definitely be hurt. But some people find, well, I can't forgive and not forget. No one's telling you to forget, because then we lose the lesson learned. So for those of you that are new and listening in again, I am a Taoist and I do practice Taoist sexual practices. I'm also a yogi. And we do have to love everyone. We do, no matter what horrendous crime they've done. I know that may be hard to hear. We have to love everyone, but we can love people from afar if they are detrimental to our health and well-being, which is much of the time, many things that I have to deal with my patients as well. But you don't have to forget, because then you lose the lesson learned, right? And so if one understands that, then it's easier for them to let that go and go through the process that I kind of walk them through. And I detail it there with all writing and sending it to the person and so on. And if someone has passed away and that's someone you haven't been able to forgive, it's a different process that I also walk them through as well. But it definitely has a severe impact on health and well-being. And with you speaking about aging, for example, Elise, yes, the kidneys, again, are the clocks of the body. You know that someone is about to die when the kidneys shut down,
Oh,
right? So they are the clocks of the body. If those organs are really in true state of health and well-being, you're able to let go of fears easier. I can't tell you,
huh.
even that woman who was afraid to drive over bridges, nourishing the kidneys, now she's okay. Another one couldn't walk on the same side of the street as a dog, nourish those kidneys for a time, now she's okay with dogs. I mean, even that emotion that hinders the health of those organs, they can affect your life and just everything in general. It's all related. The body's an umbrella.
I know. I'm in awe, really, just, listening to both of you and the ways in which, right, we're talking about, one minute we're talking about taking care of your kidney, and then we're talking about forgiveness and, babies. And I mean, I love how interconnected it all is, and that, both of you bring such a wealth of knowledge about that.
Thank you. And for Elise, just so you know, well, my son is 21, everybody, okay? And I had him in 43 minutes because I was doing yoga. So I started doing yoga maybe about 25 years ago. My son's 21, and doing prenatal yoga. I mean, doing tripod headstands at 7, 8 months. And I gave birth in 43 minutes. I'm a record breaker at Holy Name Hospital. And boom, it's just get him out. So that absolutely works. Absolutely. I'm so happy that you do that.
I love Dr. Melissa. I had a home birth, and it was the simplest birth, and people would say, what? And I would say, I did yoga up until the morning of that birth. And I always tell people it was yoga, just do yoga.
Wonderful. Absolutely. Absolutely. Everybody find Elise. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what else? Like, so forgiveness, emotions, kidney health. I mean, I know there are just countless things we could talk about, but what comes, like, maybe for each of you, what you feel like maybe is your number 1 and 2 health practices? I know you probably have many, many, many. Elise, how about you? What would you say?
Lately, I have been really focusing on sleep because it's been such an issue for people during the pandemic. And sleep actually brought me to Ayurveda, my study of Ayurveda, because I was such a poor sleeper. I mean, I am a very manic, like, oh, I love to think of ideas, and that's not good for your kidneys. I need to be more calm. So sleep has been something I've been focusing on, and it's not valued in our culture. We're learning so much more about it, but Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, sleep has, and in many ancient cultures, we look to our dreams. It's more of a connection to something that is not in that, I'd say, the fire realm or the product or the outcome. The sleep is not producing an outcome, but in a way, it's the exact opposite. By focusing on sleep, we bring in more of that yin, of that softness. And I love what Dr. Julissa said about the fear, because that's so brilliant. And that's why I love gerontology, because it's one of the few fields of study where you get to study everything, because everything is related. You study sociology, psychology, biology, and how it all affects what we call the life course, because you can't separate things out. It all affects who we are. We can't always know how it gets under our skin. We're learning a lot more, but our social environment is so important. And anyway, so sleep is free. We don't have to pay anyone to sleep unless we're going to a sleep lab to be studied. And prescription medications don't help you. They're really going to, I'm sure Dr. Julissa could tell us about that, but I mean, if you're on sleep meds and you're watching this or listening to this, you can always check with your doctor, but they're supposed to be used short term. And sometimes we go through horrific and very stressful times. We may need them, but they're not meant for long term. So I could continue talking the whole time, but I'm going to turn it over so we can hear from Dr. Julissa.
Um, the fact that you focus on sleep that way, you're balancing your heart. So in ancient medicine, we know that, for example, when the person is having issues with sleep, I immediately go to in my examination to see how the heart is doing. So just consider that, my friends. If you are having sleep problems, you want to take care of that now, and definitely not be dependent on medications, as she said, because it's going to damage and overload your liver later on, and I could go on with that. All right, so in answer to your question, what do? I find that being in touch with nature is one of the most healing things that I do for myself. Walking in the park, being outdoors. My friends, I'll even take my rebounder, which is a small personal trampoline. It folds in half, and I'll take it by the water of the Hudson, and I will put it there and start jumping, looking out at the Hudson. You know, just being in touch with nature some way, somehow. You know, my office is on Park Avenue, so we don't have trees. I'm right between 33rd and 32nd Street, just 2 blocks from the Empire State Building. So I have to go look for that. And you have to look for that when you're in a metropolis, a metropolitan city. I see different types of health challenges in those people compared to those that are living in the country or those that are surrounded by nature. So I would recommend that be part of your healing regimen. Try to expose yourself to nature as much as possible. And in Taoism, we know that we are connected to nature. We even feel the shifts when we're having seasonal changes. So that's my practice.
Well, and I'm reminded, I know not everyone who's here right now probably heard this, but pre-panel when you were talking about the roses in front of your building, and which
in front of my house.
in front of your right in front of your house, the beautiful roses, and it brings up for me what I feel like is one of the best health practices is presence. And you are noticing, like, I love asking that question, you know, what beauty did you notice? Because you really get a chance to drop into that, even though I wasn't there for those roses. I felt it when you were talking about them. And there's for me, just like calming of the system when we notice, particularly, I think, you know, when I notice beauty, you know, and so that to me seems like another, you know, very available tool is to just simply do our best to take a deep breath and notice something like you did with the flowers.
Yes, agreed. Beautiful. Yes.
I just wanted to see if Rachel or Linda or Victoria, those of you on camera, if you wanted to, or anybody who's not on camera as well, if you wanted to bring in something to the conversation, ask a question or something that sparked for you. Linda.
I do have a question. So you both shared stories of women in their hundreds, which I love saying that, just women in their hundreds. How much of it, obviously, it's a given that there are health related reasons for why people live that long, but how much of it do you think is really mindset? You talked about how both of them really just love themselves. It sounds like, you know, they love dressing up, they love taking care of themselves. How much of it is that?
I can start. How much is mindset? I think a lot is mindset. I kind of think of it almost as a repertoire, a palette of different traits. We know why certain things help us to live longer. And this, again, the social environment and can trump your healthy habits. I have an example of a centenarian. He actually recently, in the past year, passed away, but he was the oldest living man. I'm forgetting his name right now, in the United States. And he liked ice cream and smoking cigars, but he was very social. He would go out on his porch, and he lived in Texas. I'll find out his name, but he, you know, really being socially connected is very important. And all the communities that are considered blue zones, and if anyone doesn't know what a blue zone is, it's a place in the world where people live. There's more people, a concentration of people that live more than 100 years. And many of those areas are isolated, or in the case of one of them, it's more of a religious community where it's kind of self-isolating. And they're living in a way that people used to live, where it's very interconnected. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And that was very eye-opening for me when I wrote my book, because I'm so focused on how a yoga lifestyle will help you live longer and better, which I do think it does. But we also have to bring it out to the macrocosm, which is what we surround ourselves with. So I think that's something really important to consider. And I'll just finish with one of the quotes. He's not a professor at my school, but he's a really well-known figure in aging policy. He said to us, he said, what my centenarian friends say is make a lot of younger friends, especially in the West, because, and I see that with my dad, men aren't living as long. And my dad is 92, and he has younger friends, but a lot of his friends his age are no longer alive. So have a lot of friends in different generations is a good way to live.
Love that. Love that. Absolutely everything that Elise said. And in answer to your question, yes, most of it, and I would say a good 90% of it would definitely be mindset. With the centenarians that I interviewed, it's always also having a goal. So putting something on the calendar, having something to look forward to. Also, which she mentioned as far as the blue zones, Loma Linda, California is one of them. And you're there in California, Elise, right? Okinawa, Japan, Cremona, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and in Italy as well. Those are the 5 blue zones in the world. And my goal is to visit each and every one. I've already visited Costa Rica twice and interviewed them there, those centenarians there. But you'll also notice that it's not just the food, because obviously in all these different cultures, there are different types of food. They are mainly vegetarian though. Hello, vegetarian. So I'm going to 125. We have to do that. So they are mainly vegetarian, and mainly in festivity and festive time, they may incorporate fish and such, but also because of my spiritual practice, no killing involved, please, right? However, it's also that they're very close-knit with their community, and they tend to have a religious upbringing. Whatever religion it may be, whatever spiritual practice it may be, they tend to have that as part of their nature, their being, right? So it's being very close-knit with family, having that. Oh, and also what I found in the centenarians in Costa Rica is they're surrounded by youngsters, their grandchildren, and there's that respect, that filial piety, that respect for the elders is there. So they're all surrounded in a same household. There could be a great grandmother, grandmother, you see. So everyone is together, and everyone is up. Even the great grandparents are upbringing the grandchildren, and you'll find someone working in the fields with a machete at 110 years old, and that they never stop moving their bodies. That's another aspect. The body is always moving. So I love that she mentioned yoga, and that's mild on the body. Rebounding, also mild on the body. I recommend that to my patients as well. So keeping active, always having something to do, and everything that I've just mentioned is mindset when you think about it, right? Okay, I'm done.
Oh, this is great. I love this. Linda, did that answer? Great question. I'm so glad you asked that. And I'm so glad for the answers to that, because it's so, for me too, I just have to say, so it was probably about 5 years ago that it even entered my mind to have a goal to live over 100, right? Like I suddenly I was actually writing, I have a practice of writing my obituary, which is like what I want to live into as my obituary. And I suddenly thought, wow, I have a lot that I want to accomplish, and I'm going to have to live, I'm going to have to live a long time. And I think even just this conversation, to me, when we plant it in our minds, and Dr. Jaleesa, I love 125, right? And I know for you, that is like a healthy, vibrant, you're going to be like dancing at 125.
Yes.
And it's like just hearing that, I feel like it opens the door of possibility. just to know, oh, there are people who are setting their sights on living a healthy life way past 100. That's so exciting.
And moving there. I'm planning on retiring there because I want to be surrounded by them.
Where are you going to move? Where are you going to go?
I'm considering either Costa Rica, but again, I want to visit all of the blue zones. And my partner, he's Greek, so Ikaria, Greece, may be one of them. That's another blue zone, so that may be something. And and I have to honestly say he's extremely vibrant and so on. It's like I have my own Bruce Lee. He's a Jeet Kune Do martial arts expert for many years, and I'm 19 years older than him, and you wouldn't even think.
Wow. Elise, how about you? I know I live in San Francisco as well. We share that.
I'm sorry, 19 years younger. What am I saying? Oh. He's 19 years older than me.
Oh, he's 19 years older. Yes. I was like,
I thought I could go either way. Yeah. I could see either, but yeah, it's.
So Lisa, I was going to ask you, do you ever think about where you live and this whole concept of being surrounded by people in that like-minded way?
Oh, that's a great question, because that's something I do think about a lot. And I was just talking to somebody about co-housing and what kind of environment. I'm always contemplating, especially for the future, as the planet gets older. I think we do need to create, my dog is snoring if you hear any weird sounds. I just tapped her. Creating environments where we can age together and live together. I don't know what it will look like. Right now, I'm living in an intergenerational household with my parents and sometimes my son, who comes to stay with us. And so I'm really a big fan of living, as Dr. Julissa said, with different generations, because I think that's how we've always lived, except for in the past 100 years or so, when we started separating in Western culture. People moving away, and that's happening around the world, but there's still, well, and it's changed in the pandemic, let's say, because there's, I think 50% of young adults now live with their parents. I want to take away the stigma that that's something negative, because I don't think it really is at all. And I don't understand where that came from. I think it's kind of programming. I mean, if you need to live away from your parents, fine, but I think I'd like to just take that stigma off the table. So I'm contemplating that for myself and looking around, and I love to travel as well. So for me, the jury's out, but I'll want to either create my own community. That would be a fantasy, maybe having a community somewhere where we're doing yoga and it's spiritual practices, but it doesn't necessarily only have to be that, because I like variety too. And definitely with not just my generation, but younger and older adults, until I'm 125 then. Unless we're living to 1,000, I'm not, maybe I'll be the older generation.
Yeah.
I love this whole conversation is also it's really opening my heart to, again, particularly, this is the only culture I know because I've grown up in the United States, but it's like it's really opening my heart to how we treat the elderly, right? Just from what you just said, Elise, to this weird stigma about children living with their older parents, but also just you hear about all the other cultures where people are they're kept in the arms of the community for their entire lives. Whereas here, there's just this crazy thing that we do with the elderly. And so, of course, so many people say, well, I don't want to live that long because, you just get lonely and sick. And the mindset, as you two have pointed out, it's not there because we don't have a role model in our culture for that kind of healthy, loving, growing older. Do you feel like that's changing at all?
I have to sadly say I don't really see much. I know that what we've been through in the world with the I'm going to say this politically correctly, scamdemic that we've been living through during these times. It's and what you say where young adults have gone back home. The sad part is that most of that was probably done from fear.
Ah,
And so that doesn't extend lifespan. Remember, fear destroys the health of the kidneys, and the kidneys are the life clocks of the body. So we have to dispel fear. But I would hope, I mean, it really depends on culture. In my culture, well, although I was born here in New York City, my parents are Dominican and my mother is Italian descent from Dominican Republic. They were both born there, but my mom is Italian descent. And so we respectfully have to ask for a blessing every time we encounter an elder. We ask for that blessing, and when we're leaving and coming back, and every time you greet them and you kiss them on the cheek and there's a hug, and it's just a different culture. I'm not saying that obviously, this culture is the only one that has, lives long lives, but there's that respect there. And so sadly, you see a lot of it's big here in the United States, more putting our elderly parents in a nursing home than in, I would say, any other part of the world. And so there's that, I see that disconnect there. I don't know what you see it as, but I've been seeing that.
yeah, yeah. Hi, Brenda. I saw you just came
Hi.
here. We've got some awesome authors today.
Mhm.
Elise, did you want to respond to that at all about our culture and longevity?
Yeah, I think it's something that I'm working hard to give us. I mean, in my book, I have a lot of role models, and there's a reason for that, because if you didn't grow up with a grandparent or a great grandparent that lived longer, lived a vibrant life, you may not think it's possible. Just by having this conversation, I think the audience can attest to whether or not they're feeling more hopeful about living longer. But we don't, because I think the Western culture is very much on product and outcome, and you're not life force, you're not vitality, you're not consciousness. And I think that the elders, they teach from this deeper place of wisdom where you are your body and you're not your body, and you hold both of those to be true. Your beauty comes from within and without, I mean, from within, and it's reflected back, we'll say. And I also wanted to say that in Sardinia, in Italy, the men, that's one of the places where the men live the longest in the United States. And yeah.
In Italy, yeah, that's another blue zone. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And they have a calendar. The men, they have a pinup calendar. Instead of like sexy girls, it's the centenarian calendar that everybody buys.
I love it.
They celebrate the men living to be 100. So it flips it. I think we can flip it. I don't know if, hopefully it'll happen by the time I'm 125. But I think there's many traditional cultures where aging is viewed very differently. So it takes a while for people to wrap their head around that. And I think because there's so many older adults, there's going to be many more that hopefully will start to flip this. It's going to take we have to do more of these events. Keep talking about this.
Yeah. And you know what also Elise just dropped in when you were talking about that is it is true in our culture that focus on productivity. So that what happens somehow is this skewed way of thinking that, and I always hear this, once people retire, then they often will pass away after retirement because we're so focused on what have you done? What have you produced? Versus like what this conversation today, which is why I'm so jazzed, I'm so energized after talking to you guys, which is that it's like, how are we being? What kind of love are we expressing? How are we feeling vital in our lives? How are we connected to people around us and serving in our community? Those are very different ways to focus than, like, what do you do for work? What have you produced? And so that's very exciting to me.
And I wanted to add, because I don't want to say that you can't be productive and viable and relevant. It's being productive at the cost of what we've been talking about, the vitality. And I think Dr. Julissa could say at the cost of burning out our kidneys and overtaxing ourselves. It's a regenerative productivity that doesn't rely on, pushing, pushing, pushing. I'd love to hear what Dr. Julissa has to say about that.
Yes, I agree with you. Constantly doing. And I'm sure that in yoga practice, you know this, and even in all spiritual practices, it's okay to one day just feel like sitting and just sit and don't do anything. Just sit and be with yourself. I would recommend, when I tell my patients to kind of do that at least once a week, to do it at least in the park. So they're surrounded by nature, looking at the trees swaying in the wind, seeing the birds coming to grab whatever that was on the grass or whatever. It's more healing than you could ever imagine. And so, yes, I absolutely agree with you ladies. It's changing times, but I feel that we can still connect with what our traditional ancestors used to do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I can't believe this hour went so quickly, and there were just so many great topics that you both brought in, and I love that, because I love just in that touching upon so many things that hopefully everyone who's here will be listening to the replay, can grab on to something that really speaks to them, and practice that for a little while and see. That's the other thing I love so much about each of you, is that you both, you really bring that sense of curiosity about, like, well, try it and see how it feels. Try it and see how you feel. And that's also, there's such an energy and vitality in that. So thank you both so much. Again, Victoria has posted both your books, the links to purchase your books. Hopefully people will do that. They're amazing. Thank you for everything you brought. Victoria, thank you for everything you do. Brenda, thank you for being the one to bring us all here. And thank you to
Hello,
those.
Brenda.
Thanks to everyone who came and listened, and we'll be here next week again. Hope to see you then.